I want to talk a little bit about identifying with labels and the dogma that comes with that ego identification. So let's take spiritual people, for example. If someone rigidly identifies with being spiritual, they're going to first of all deny aspects of themselves that they deem not spiritual or aspects of themselves that their spiritual community deems not spiritual. So that's one part of it. Now, you're going to be in denial in a lot of ways. So if anger comes up within you, you're going to suppress it or judge it or condemn it because that's not spiritual. I'm a spiritual person and spiritual people aren't angry. Or like if you go to a wedding and you have a couple drinks, you get a little drunk, you might beat yourself up about it because spiritual people don't drink. It's judging yourself based upon a label, and it's just a label. So be careful of where you're placing your identity, and wherever you think your identity is, your ego attaches to it. So it's ego identification, and your ego wants to hold that identity because your ego, its survival is based upon a personality construct, essentially. So it's going to do anything to maintain the personality construct, include judge other things, suppress other things, and whatnot. So this really limits you in so many ways and in so many subtle ways too, and you're not even going to be aware of a lot of this. So with spiritual people, you see that a lot, you know? If something's not spiritual, they will deny it or judge it within themselves. We're all humans. We all have a really wide spectrum of things, and we're all paradoxical in many senses. And the same applies to like athletes, for example. So think of an athlete. This is a story that has happened many times over. It's almost become a modern day archetype. Like an athlete, really good athlete, all they do is play, let's say, one sport. Let's say they play football, American football. And that's all they do from the time they're a kid and they go professional. And that's their main focus in life. But then they get injured. And what happens after they get injured? Their identity comes crashing down. Once they're not able to play their sport, which has become their whole identity, they spiral into like depression, and it becomes a downward spiral because their identity gets shattered. But someone in a similar position that has pursued other interests outside of playing football, or it hasn't become their sole identity, their ego identification, that person would deal with an injury much better. They won't fall into as deep of a depression, if at all. They won't fall into that downward spiral if their ego isn't completely identified in that small box of what it is to be a human, which is the athlete archetype. So this applies to everything. Any label you can think of, anything from religion to race to politics to, athlete or non-athlete to, being smart or not smart, to being this kind of person or that kind of person, or introverted or extroverted. Whatever label you use, it becomes a box of limitation. So if I call myself an introvert and I'm identified with it, I'm going to make myself uncomfortable when I go to parties. Do you see? But if I say I am who I am, and that's always changing, I could go into a party and be comfortable, or I could go by myself and be comfortable without having to pin myself down as an introvert or extrovert, because life is always changing, constantly changing. So to have this thing like, oh, this is what I am, it's static, I caught it, that's going against the very nature of what is, because the very nature of what is always changing. So it's delusional, and it's essentially an illusion to try to pin something down as what you are, because you're always changing, the world's always changing. So yeah, if your ego is identified with a certain label, or you consider yourself this type of person or that type of person, you're limiting yourself. So watch out for that. Don't limit yourself. Just be you. Okay? However that might look. And even with the negative things, accept it, because you're never going to get over negative things or negative aspects of yourself if you don't first accept it. If you deny it or judge it, they're just going to come back and manipulate things from behind the scenes. So accept yourself as who you are and just have fun. Okay? All right. Peace, peace. Much love and one love, baby.